Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk here at Black Cat 2025. Terry Sweeney here with Dark Reading, and joining us now on the stage is Tyler Shields, Principal Analyst, Enterprise Strategy Group with Omdia and an Informa company. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us on the Dark Reading News Desk today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Terry.
We are talking about continuous threat exposure management. So starting with some context, just help us understand the difference between ordinary threat exposure management and continuous threat exposure management.
Yeah, so the continuous thing is obviously a delta, but I even want to go back a little bit further than that and talk about the difference between vulnerability management and exposure management.
Okay.
Because vulnerabilities fundamentally are a core root problem. Exposures are going beyond, say, the core root problem in some code and actually saying what are the exposures that could include misconfigurations and could include errors that we have done or given permission when we shouldn't have given permission. So we have to get past the concept of just thinking of risk reduction as getting rid of vulnerabilities and move it more towards exposure reduction.
Okay.
And then to get to the continuous question, it's not a once-in-time thing. We can't do this monthly, quarterly, or yearly. We have to do this continuously because of the speed of the attacks that are happening around us.
Okay, so is exposure, is that fait accompli, or is that the risk of exposure?
So it is, the way I think of exposures is a tactical exposure of risk that could be exploited by an attacker.
Got it.
Foundationally, right? And like I said, vulnerabilities are a form of exposure because there's a code vulnerability that can be exploited or something like that. But exposures could also be something like leaving your car door unlocked. That's an exposure because now somebody can get into your car, where they don't have to necessarily break the window to do so.
Yeah, good analogy. So that's an effective case for continuous threat exposure management, especially given the advent of all these AI-based attacks.
Right.
Not to mention volume and severity. Say more about the dynamics at work here. AI is obviously turbocharged all these things, but what do you see from where you sit?
So what AI brings to the table is speed. AI equals automation, automation equals doing things faster. And that's not only for the defenders, but that's also for the attackers. So I've been working on this concept of, in math and calculus, we talk about limits as they approach infinity or limits as they approach zero. If we really take the concept of AI to its furthest extreme, we could talk about speed approaching infinity of attack. And if we do this little thought exercise around that, what does that mean for how we have to execute security? We have to execute security continuously in a way that finds the problem, prioritizes the problem, and fixes the problem fully autonomously. Otherwise, you'll never be able to keep up with the speed of the attack, right? And so this is the dynamic that AI is bringing to the table, is that speed of attack impact, which makes us change the calculus on the speed of risk reduction.
Okay, all right. I'm not quibbling with the technical aspects of what you're describing, but it does sound pretty expensive to me. So I'm thinking about this, especially in light of, we're hearing about how security budgets aren't really growing. In fact, a lot of them are shrinking. How can organizations that are getting squeezed find their way toward a continuous threat exposure management model?
Yeah, so I think there's a process of continuous threat and exposure management. And I think certainly companies can embrace the process, right? Embrace the process of discovery, of validation, of remediation, of fixing problems, of prioritizing. That process is something that doesn't necessarily take significant money to roll out. It's about improving the maturity of your organization. That's kind of answer one. Answer two to that is vendors today need to be designing their products to be continuous in nature and to provide that value proposition continuously.
All right. You've also reported that expectations are low for organizations that are contemplating the move to continuous threat exposure platforms. What does that portend for market acceptance?
So the reason that the expectations on platform capabilities is low is because the platformization process is new. So many of these mega vendors are pulling together value propositions of point solutions and creating bigger platforms that provide a 1 + 1 = 3 value to the customer, right? We're just beginning these processes, right? We're just beginning the true platformization of cybersecurity. And so the expectations of the buyer are, hey, I want this platform. I want to have less tools in my environment, but I'm not sure that the platform can get me there yet. I don't quite trust the platform from an execution capability standpoint. So luckily for these platform vendors, the expectations from the buy side is rather low.
Okay.
Which is good, because that means they have time to innovate the technology, do more acquisitions, roll up these platforms, and create outsized value that didn't exist before.
And be really smart in their marketing.
Absolutely. Marketing is always something we can wrap on, but I don't want them to, platform wash or whatever we want to call that term.
It's a good term.
And just say, hey, I'm a platform, therefore I'm better. No, you have to. These guys can't give up innovation and execution. It has to happen because they're building trust from the buyer. And if they make mistakes and they get rid of the innovation that's coming from these point solutions, nobody wants the platform.
Of course. Okay. Tyler, take us out with some thoughts around customers or viewers who may be thinking about a continuous threat solution. They're not sure if it's right for them. What kinds of questions should they be asking themselves?
They probably already have, most of them will have a vendor in-house that is driving towards that vision already. So step one, understand the process you want to achieve, regardless of your technology. Get the process right, get the people right, know what you want to build. Then look to the technology that you have in place and go to those vendors and say, how do I get this to be continuous? How do I get this to eliminate exposures as well as vulnerabilities? And ultimately, how do I get this to reduce risk? Because that's what I care about as a CISO or a security practitioner, is reduction of risk. So understand the processes, understand the human requirements, and then dictate that your vendors get you there.
All right. Well, Tyler, great stuff around continuous threat exposure management. Thanks so much for stopping by the Dark Reading News Desk.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We've been talking with Tyler Shields of Enterprise Strategy Group. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us for this segment. We'll see you next time.